Hi, everybody. So we have Ida here today. And Ida, I know that you have been judging for the last 6 days at a Western dressage and dressage competition. So after seeing lots and lots of rides, we just want to hear what are the top 5 things that you would tell us to gain points?
Well, hi, Dana. Wow, this is going to be fun. Well, a lot of you know that I really have a thing about the entry, but day after day after day, we had 6 days of horse after horse after horse after horse, and it's 8 hours of it, and I'm like, okay, I've got to talk to them about the things that people lost the most points on because it's just heartbreaking to withhold points for something that I know you can do. So all I have to do is maybe just nag you a little bit. So I'm here to tell you a few little secrets that you already heard, but maybe this time they'll become clearer. It's really important. I saw so many horses that came in and trotted or jogged up to the halt. And when they departed, they were supposed to trot or jog directly from the halt. And they didn't. They walk, which means that that's a phenomenal, phenomenal markdown, and especially in level one and up, it's huge. It kind of gets worse as you go along because we're expecting you to know how to do this. The interesting thing about this is that biomechanically for horses, halt to jog or halt to trot is not tough. Like halt to a diagonal gait from the brain for the physiology of the horse, it's one of the easiest things for a horse to do. You'll see them do it in nature in the pasture all the time. Don't even think about it. It's not that hard to do. You just have to train the horse that you're going to halt, going to move off at the jog, and the riders have to give a clear jog aid. And what I saw was that they don't differentiate much between their walk and their jog, and that they don't have enough intensity to train the horse to move forward to the leg, to a soft leg. And I didn't feel like they asked for it, but maybe weren't really aware of it. So, got to really read those tests. And if it says halt, jog, or halt, trot, it has to be direct. Now, with that being said, in higher levels, there are places where horses come up to the halt and they salute, or they're somewhere else in the test and do something. In Western dressage, we ask them to lope off from a square halt. Now, biomechanically, loping off from a square halt um, and taking a specific lead, and most of the time, the test actually tells you what lead you have to be on. That's incredibly hard. That's unbelievable. It's tough. So the horse has to be engaged. He has to be standing absolutely immobile, and you have to be able to signal him, yeah, okay, bud, I want you to pick up your right hind leg to start with because that's going to be the sequence of the football. Can I be standing and get that hind leg up? Because the lope is going to start with that leg. Wow. And that actually physiologically, biomechanically for a horse is hard. And that's why it's so far up the levels in Western dressage and picking up a specific lead. So, with that being said, at level 4 or 5, if a horse is supposed to lope forward and it takes one half of a step of walk because it by mistake maybe starts with a foreleg and then it gets that leg up, it shifts a foreleg so it can get that leg up, a little tiny shift and then it sort of gets into it, or even a half of a step of a sequence of walk is somewhat forgiven. It's not a bit, it's not a, it's more because it's so difficult. But walk to jog, halt to jog is not physiologically that difficult for a horse. And so we're kind of shocked when it's not happening. But we just want to tell you, like, that's a huge deduction. Please, please, we don't want to take it off. Like, and do how about it's great to do transitions. We know we're supposed to do transitions. So I'm challenging you to go out there today and do jog, halt, jog, halt. Do lots of jog halts and halt jog. It's and it gets the horse balanced on the hind legs. It gets them up in the front. It lifts up their thoracic. It collects them. It's really good for you. Let's do more of them. So that was the first thing. The second thing is once they get on the center line and they get into the halt, we're seeing a lot of haunches swinging, haunches swung left, haunches swung right, not square or straight at the halt. They got on the center line. They give me an elegant salute. Thank you for watching our video on elegant salute. Thank you very much. I don't want to see anybody with their palm forward like they're looking for a handout. That's not cool. But a lot of you really had elegant salutes, and I could tell you'd been watching our videos. So thank you very much. So the problem with getting a straight square halt is just that you weren't absolutely centered in the saddle. You weren't even both legs. You weren't even both hands. And maybe you got excited and you were kind of distracted by something in your legs, one leg further back, one leg further forward. So got to focus on those aids, that they're even and evenly placed on the horse, and also figure out which tendency your horse has, that he has a tendency to step this way. So I have to guard a little bit more there, because people lost a ton of points. And the thing is we were watching competitors day after day after day, and the same competitor, we'd write it on the test, but the next day the same thing, and the next day we're trying not to remember, but it was happening. And so you have to learn from your tests. So look at those tests, figure it out, and try to get organized with that you get in straight square halts. And remember, when you move off, look directly at C, look right at that judge, and put your legs in seat and aids on evenly, and you're more likely to progress straight, which is good. That's what we're hoping for. So remember, no moving while you're saluting. And that's an emergency move if you think your horse is so stressed out that you can't get it to halt and it's still moving around, and you're like, well, it's either going to back up or dump me, so I got to salute so I can keep moving. Well, that's definitely like a 3 or a 2. That's way worse than insufficient. It's bad if you're in that position. And theoretically, you're supposed to halt, establish the halt, and then salute. So if your horse is still moving, don't be saluting while it's moving. That could be your fault, that you are the one anticipating, not them. You've just trained yourself like, I got to get this over with. You need to actually get the halt settled, because the halt in that movement and the at the beginning and the end of the test, the halt itself is judged and the immobility is judged, and the salute is part of that, and it should not occur until after the halt has occurred. It says halt, salute, and then it either says leave arena, free walk, or it says proceed, work and jog, or proceed, whatever it asks you for. So that's part of it. We're hoping to see more of that. So the couple of last things that were really noticeable after many days of judging was that leg yield is a challenge for everybody, and it comes in level 1, either dressage or Western dressage. It's for everybody. And some horses begin it easier than others, but it generally is asked for in several places in the ring. Of course, if you're along the rail and you go towards the center, that's an easy setup for a rider. But a lot of these tests will have you turn at a quarter line or the center line and then begin a leg yield. Well, what we saw was that riders would not turn the corner and get straight before they started leg yielding. So they would come around those corners and they wouldn't be straight, and they wouldn't be parallel to the long side. So you didn't establish yourself on the line, and the test says to turn onto the quarter line or turn onto the center line. Well, you failed to establish the line. So right there, there's a deduction. And depending on how bad it is, it can be a 0.5 deduction, and it can be more if you completely miss the line. And then you need to get parallel to the long side in order to get crossing. So people that turn the corner to the line and they never get straight or parallel, and then they start drifting sideways, they have less opportunity to get crossing. And then they lose their impulsion and they lose their connection. And eventually the horse just kind of trots over on a diagonal. And when that kind of thing begins to happen, we get down to 5, 4, insufficient. So understanding that if it says you have to turn onto a line, you have to establish that line clearly. You got to get on it. And if you miss it, um, there's a deduction. And then get your leg yield organized. And you'll be more successful. That's going to be helpful. At all levels, it seems like lope departs are a challenge. And it didn't really matter what level it was. They can be challenging to keep the horse round to the connection. And I think the thing is for people is that they come a lot of times in the lower levels. It's like, well, I'm assuming that we're in the corner, that it would help us get the lead. So a lot of times the tests are trying to help us by you're in the corner, between C and H, left lead lope. But people are like, well, I'll just lean in and I'll cut the corner. And by the time that people are leaning in and the horse is leaning in, and then they're on the shoulder, and which means they're on the forehand. And the more they're on the forehand, a lot of times they're going to use their neck to lift themselves up rather than step down on their haunches and compress themselves. And so, theoretically, the lope should start on the outside hind. And if the horse will take weight, shift some weight onto its hind legs and get organized and lift its thoracic up and go forward, that's great. But when a horse is too much on the forehand anyway, and now it's asked to go, what it does is it just lifts its neck up, not its thoracic, and it goes to get started. It kind of makes a hump to get going, and it's trying to be willing for you, but it was in the wrong balance to start with. So spending some time schooling your lope departs and being clear that you work with the horse for really correct connection or on the bitness or self carriage, and get your trainer and get your riding instructor to talk to you about, okay, I loped and I sort of had his head down, but was I on the forehand? Because if you were, then when he does this thing with his neck, they're going to mark you, not really in connection or not in the balance we want, or leaned in. A lot of deductions on the canter departs because of misunderstanding that the horse wasn't on the hind legs to start. Before you even ask, they have to be active behind. And then they have to be in the correct balance in the jog or the walk and actively going so that you can have a successful transition. And transitions, again, we always have to ride lots and lots and lots and lots of transitions. And so the more transitions we ride, the more athletic we make our horses and the more opportunities we have to correct these small concerns. I mean, they're not the end of the world, but it amazed me at all levels. It wasn't just at basic that this occurred. And I thought, we need to talk more about transitions. We need to ride a lot of them. Transitions in Western dressage are about the horse using itself, sitting back, using itself, sitting back on its hind legs, using its back, and lifting itself and having self carriage and being light to the hand. And we're all out there doing our tests and everything, but I don't think we think so much about our day-to-day schooling that we're developing an athlete and need to do a ton more transitions. So that was a very important thing for me to think about at the end of 6 days. I was like, everyone at all levels could do a lot more of these, and it would be good for them. Actually, I realize I've given you 5, but I have one more if I can give it. I saw a lot of hand steering. And I wrote hand steering. And then I thought, I'm hoping everybody knows what that is. But it really was steering the horse off the reins. And although we think a lot about riding the horse off the seat and so on, there's a difference between what we know we should do and what happens when we become under stress and we're trying to get around the arena and things are happening faster than we're expecting. When hand steering occurs, the horse tends to lose its bend and it loses its balance and posture. If people are hand steering, a lot of times we see too that their hands are high and wide, and they tend to be up over the swell and even behind the swell or up over the horn. I mean, incredibly high. And those cause balance problems because the higher the reins are, the deeper the horses tend to go, but they also tend to curl up behind the connection. And then we get them thoracic down, not enough weight on the back, and possibly not active enough from behind because it takes a lot of action from behind or energy or compression of the hind legs to also support asking the thoracic come up, which is the vascule of the back. That's our whole principle in this work is the balance of the horse while it does the work, ergonomic balance. So hand steering gets to be tough for us. Thinking about low hands around and in front of the swell and triangulated forearms, which are when you ride two-handed, and we do, and we ride in snaffles, but also in bits that have a curb. Um, the more triangulation of the forearm you can have, the more elastic the hand can be, and it keeps the circle of the aids. So avoiding hand steering, getting the hands low and together and around and in front of the swell is going to be your best ergonomic position to help most riders and most horses. So those were my big observations for quick answers. I hope that took care of it, Dana. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too, and thank you so much for giving all of that advice and those pointers to gain points.
We're hoping to see you all at sea and we'll be ready with the big scores. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.